Hey, everybody, welcome to Think Business Live. Looking forward to kicking off the new year with Melanie Pump. Melanie, it's great to connect with you. I'm looking forward to talking to you about your new book, Detox, Managing Insecurity in the Workplace. And I think this is such a relevant topic, especially as we sit here today on January 4th, recording this live. Of course, this will get reprocessed in podcast platforms, et cetera, et cetera. But today, as of a few minutes ago, the news from the Wall Street Journal, where Americans quit their jobs at record level in November, while job openings stay near recent highs, et cetera, et cetera. So I think with the Great Resignation is putting a spotlight on what people do when they feel very insecure, when they are in a toxic environment. And, you know, I think for many, many years, for many, many decades, for many generations, the madman way of running an office no longer works, hasn't for some time. I think some people haven't really caught up to that fully. Many, many have. But being a toxic environment, I think, can be defined in so many ways, and not only outwardly, but the undertone and the undercurrent of a company. So, as a business coach, I work with solopreneurs to Fortune 100 companies and everything in between. I work with people who are successful and stuck and get them unstuck, ranging from CEOs to salespeople, managers, and VPs. And the reason I bring that up is because I see insecurity in so many people, and sometimes people don't realize what they're doing is toxic.
Right.
So I'm really looking forward to diving in and deep with you. But my first question to you is, the name of your book is Detox, Managing Insecurity in the Workplace, can be bought on Amazon.com, et cetera, et cetera. But let's talk about how you define insecurity and how you define toxic.
Right. Yeah. So defining insecurity first is because often we don't even realize that we actually feel insecure because
Right.
and also what in the environment is actually making us feel that way. But when we feel insecure, we have a sense of vulnerability. So we feel like something in the environment is unsettling us and making us feel unsafe, and that makes us triggers protective instincts. We become more defensive of ourselves.
Right.
So when we're insecure, that triggers our fight or flight, that we need to go into protection mode. And so what could be causing that? So that's where you get into, what is causing toxicity in a work environment. And there's really obvious things that we think about, like the bullies and the micromanagers are the first things that our mind goes to when we think about what makes a work environment toxic. But there's also other factors, like if a work environment, there's a lot of uncertainty. So people are unclear about what the expectations are of them, or they don't know if the business is doing well, or what the business strategy is, or what the vision and values of the business. That kind of lack of clarity can also really create toxicity in a workplace.
Yeah. Let's talk about emotional intelligence. One of the most important things of emotional intelligence being self-awareness, and to the people who don't recognize, to the leaders who are creating toxic environments or allowing it to happen. One of my favorite lines is, "It's not what you preach; it's what you tolerate." And so with that, how do people raise their awareness to really zoom out and be an observer of their own actions, their leadership, and how to evolve that?
Yeah. And it is such a good point, because there are, many leaders. One thing that I refer to often is Jekyll and Hyde type leadership,
Yeah.
where people aren't aware that even though they're on their best behavior or being a great leader 80% of the time, let's say, this other 20% of the time where they kind of lose sight of the impact of their actions and use toxic behaviors can really damage the work environment. So having that self-awareness of how you are all the time, not just how you view yourself most of the time, is really important. And I do recommend coaching, like coaching really is something that can help a leader increase their self-awareness, because having an outsider, somebody who's outside, talk through situations with you can really highlight that. So a coach can really improve someone's ability to be aware.
Yeah, I would agree. A drop of blood ruins a gallon of water.
Oh, absolutely, it does. And
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it in the workplace, and I've had leaders myself who I've worked with who have been that way. Because then people start walking around on eggshells because they're afraid of when the negative behavior is going to come out, and no amount of good behavior can undo that damage.
It's interesting you bring that up, Melanie, because sometimes I'll go into an organization, and depending on the size, if it's I would say 25 or under, I'll in many cases I'll actually talk to everybody within a company. If it's over that, then usually just kind of a select group of people, just because it's, if I'm working with a company with 10,000 people, I can't talk to all 10,000 people, but the collection of people, sometimes what I'll hear is such and such as a manager, as a leader, as a C-level exec, they'll say something, as an example, always yelling. And when I talk to that person, they'll say, I haven't yelled for 2 years. But it sits within the walls of the company and the culture. And like you said, it doesn't go away.
Yeah, it's very hard to make it go away. I mean, you can make that go away. Like if the leader, for example, recognizes what their behavior has been, talks about it, and how they're going to make an effort to have that be different going forward.
Right.
But they do really need to take some tangible actions to turn that around. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Be vulnerable. Get into the arena. Show their imperfectness. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I agree. And so with that being said, Melanie, if the person who reads this book, is it the person who wants to be preventative, or the person who's in a situation, or both?
Well, I mean, it can be helpful to both, but the book is targeted at leaders, because over time I have been in, throughout the leadership positions that I've been in, I've seen what can be effective to increase the security in the work environment. So the book talks about, how do you identify factors in your work environment that may be pointing to the fact that it is an insecure workplace, and then I provided some strategies on how to fix that, and those are strategies that mostly leaders can take.
And what are some of those things that people should be, have a higher, antenna, on, so they can prioritize this as urgent?
Yeah, there's a number of things to look for. For one, if you have a lot of people in the workplace that are procrastinating or avoiding work, we often see that in employees, and we tend to kind of blame the employee for those kinds of behaviors. But if a work environment isn't safe, you will see people sort of avoiding tasks, avoiding talking in meetings, not sharing information. Those kinds of things can point to a work environment that's toxic.
Yeah.
Also, if there's a lot of defensiveness in the workplace, like it's hard to give people feedback because they always go straight into that defensive position, that can also be a sign that a workplace is toxic.
And what is the solution?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of different things, and you need to really get in and diagnose the workplace. But part of it is establishing some transparency, establishing communication around what expectations are. People tend to become defensive when they don't know what's expected of them. So really clearly setting objectives and providing feedback to employees so they know how they're doing. Also, really making sure you have the right people in the right roles, because work environments can become toxic if people are in roles that they're not right or ready for.
Yeah.
So really being clear on your hiring processes and making sure that you're bringing the right people in will really help to create a secure environment.
Yeah, I see that all the time. Let's talk about the heart-mind connection, right? Because what you're talking about, I think people can get stuck in their heads and not enough in their hearts. And to zoom out, to be an observer, to tap into your EQ, emotional intelligence, your SQ, your spiritual intelligence, and really kind of move with instincts, gut, and heart. Sometimes, people don't even know how to do that. And when they do, they don't know how to do that.
And a lot of that is driven by insecurity within the leader themselves. So part of that first starting place is working on yourself.
Correct.
Because for you to be a really strong leader, getting out of your head actually requires security within yourself as well, because then you can think more about other people. So I really do recommend doing some work on yourself first to make sure that you're in the right role, that you're in a healthy place, and then you can actually become more aware just naturally of those around you and the impact you're having on them.
What percentage of companies do you think, and maybe you have a stat on this, maybe you don't, but regardless, I think your gut is a good indicator. What percentage of companies that have an insecure feel and a toxic feel have a very insecure leader at the head who also is toxic? How does that connect?
I mean, it's a very, very high percent. I don't have the stat, but I would say, a large percent, like over 90. The tone from the top is a real thing. Like we all know that those words for a reason. It has a huge impact. If you have an insecure leader at the top of an organization, it's very difficult for that whole organization to not become toxic.
Yeah.
You can have microcultures within different departments, because certainly one leader can make a big difference to their team, but they are going to be fighting against that. That's what's coming down from the top.
Yeah. Sometimes I see it as I've been hired in the past by leaders who are insecure and want me to fix things that they will then self-destruct.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And so and so you see why it doesn't work. Right. So I'll have to actually end a relationship because I can't do my work with So it's like, I do work with people who are very open-minded, who want to grow, who can be vulnerable. And I think it's the same thing. So the leadership of today is what? The leadership of today is what's the formula for a leader today?
Well, I mean, as we've talked about, the starting point really does have to be doing some work on yourself. So you're coming into that leadership role from a strong internal position, because then you can be more aware and you can have that transparent, open dialogue with your employees, because you're not defensive and insecure yourself, because we feed off of each other. So if you have a leader who is defensive themselves, their whole organization is going to be that way because they're being protective. So the starting point is really looking for healthy leaders.
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk about you for a minute. You wrote this amazing book. But, I just want to read your bio. I loved your bio on your website. It reads, I am a survivor, a business leader, and deep believer in the power of positive, supportive work environments. 25 years ago, I didn't envision this future for myself. I didn't have an education. I felt shame over my troubled youth. I was insecure and scared. It goes on and it can be found more at melaniepump.com. But what I loved about this, Melanie, is one more sentence. With the support of healthy leaders and workplaces, I overcame my fears and challenges. The person that had been hiding in the shadows emerged and prospered. And there's more to that bio, which is great. But what I loved about this is I really do believe that we teach our pain. And those are the best teachers, right? The ones that have walked through the pain can now be great teachers. And so, 25 years ago, sometimes there's this law of proximity that happens where people can connect. So take us back 25 years ago and where you were and that support that you got that got you onto the road of where you are today.
Right. And it's an important part of my story and sort of the views that I've established over time, because I did come into the workplace when I was 20 years old. I didn't have any education. I walked into an environmental engineering firm where everybody had PhDs and master's degrees and felt that imposter syndrome that we talk about. But I was really so fortunate that in that first role, I had a leader who was the kind of healthy leader that we talked about and wasn't in her own head and did look at me and saw the potential that I had and wanted to support me to grow. And she helped motivate me to go back to school, get my bachelor's degree. I then went on and got my CPA designation and helped me grow to where I am today in a CFO role and in a position to be able to talk about positive leadership. So if it weren't for that first leader, I could still be at a receptionist desk today. But she really made a huge difference. And the other side of that is I stayed at that company for 7 years and was promoted 3 times during that time. So not only did it benefit me, it also benefited the organization because I had an employee who stayed and was committed and worked really
Right.
hard to grow the business. So there's two sides of this. There's we want to do, I want to do what's right to help support people and growth, but that goes hand in hand with successful businesses as well, because she not only helped me, but she helped that company keep an employee who really made a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll just go back and comment one thing that, yes, that person was there, but you were also open
Right.
to that feedback. And so I think it's the responsibility of all of us to be open to the people that come across our paths that are there to help us grow, help us evolve, help us raise our frequency, our vibration, and become the person and walking into our highest potential. So kudos to you for
Thank you.
recognizing it, because I think a lot of people could ignore it. My book that I wrote, The Think Big Movement, because I've kind of lived my life that way. Kind of, the universe has kind of put some guides in my way. And my book, that's how I wrote it, where it's a business book told as a fable, and the main character keeps on running into people that are there for a reason.
Yeah.
And I think it's great.
I totally agree. We need to be able to also recognize the opportunities when they
Absolutely.
present themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. One takeaway from your book.
One takeaway. It is just exactly what you've spoken about with that openness. One thing I do ask in the book is to take from it is not for us to judge others. So if we see somebody procrastinating, being avoidant, using behavior, start asking why as leaders, rather than putting people in boxes and deciding that somebody just isn't a valuable employee. Ask why they may be acting the way they are, and then you could really, for one, help the person and help the organization too.
Yeah. One of my favorite shows of all time is Ted Lasso. Have you watched it?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of leadership lessons in that.
Lots of leadership, but one of my favorites is be curious, not judgmental, right?
Right.
The Dartstein. It
Exactly.
is exactly what you're saying, and it is so poignant and so and so simple. It's complicated, right? Because it's finding that in the moments of taking that pause and really reflecting. All right, you ready for a quick speed round, Melanie?
All right, let's do it.
Your favorite book and why?
My favorite book right now is The Originals by Adam Grant.
Good book. He's a great author. He's a great
amazing.
author. Yeah,
he is.
He's a great author. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Well, it again, sort of tying back to what we talk about, take the opportunities that are presented to you.
Yeah. Finish this sentence. One thing everybody can do to raise their own self-awareness is
trust your instincts. Self-awareness is about trusting who we are, and we too often overlook that. So trust your gut.
Define yourself in one word.
Open.
Okay. And tell people where they can buy your book and connect with you.
Book is on Amazon, or they can go through my website at melaniepump.com.
Melanie, it's been a pleasure. It's been great. I think talking about this subject is a really, really important subject. And we can all be better leaders. We can all raise our own awareness to understand what is toxic. And your book, Detox, Managing Insecurity in the Workplace, I really believe it is a leader's responsibility to create a safe environment for people. That doesn't mean they have to be perfect, but they have to be committed to the growth of taking care of their people and their safety, making people matter. People come to work, whether it's in the office or a hybrid, to be the best that they can be, to do the best job that they can. And as leaders, it's our job to uplift them and get them to their highest potential. Or what we will see is continual turnover. Recruiting and retention is one of the most important things now more than ever before in the past, because today people will leave jobs when they don't even have a job. Yeah. And I don't think we've seen that ever before.
No,
and we are seeing that right now. And so I would love to see your second book talking about how people have made people feel secure, even more secure in this decade.
I'd love to see that too.
Yeah, congratulations on your book and the success of your book and the messages that are really, really important for every leader, no matter where they are or how perfect they think they are. I know there's something that they can learn from your book. Think Community. If Melanie can help you, please reach out. If her book, it can help you, it's on Amazon. Detox, Managing Insecurity in the Workplace. Melanie, thanks so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much for having me.